I want to start out by talking a little bit about that Isaiah reading because that little phrase, a part of that, has been so an essential text in my head for decades. And I don't know if you caught that reading is about us. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. On those who sat in deep darkness, on them light has shone. That's us. We're the people who at one point in our lives, maybe we walked in great darkness. Our culture certainly walks in great darkness. I think it is what distinguishes Christian people from the ways of the world. Not to sound like a 1980s cartoon, all evangelical and that, but we are the people who have seen that light. We are the people who have realized that light. And the two areas, Zebulun and Naphtali, they feature in both the Old Testament text and in the Gospel reading today. And it's in the context of that Isaiah had this vision of a hope-filled vision. But I suspect we might not all know necessarily the details of what was going on. So let me just quickly, again, short little history lesson, go back into the 730s BC. And so at that time, the kingdom of Israel is divided. And I know you can't necessarily see this, but you can maybe see sort of the general gist of it. This is Israel. And so down in the south here is the kingdom of Judah, and up in the north is the kingdom of Israel. And down in Judah is where Jerusalem is, and in the north is where Samaria is. And then these areas, Zebulun and Naphtali, there are two areas right up here over by the Sea of Galilee. But at the time of this Isaiah reading, these are independent kingdoms. Sort of think of them like Germany before 1871. So there's these different kingdoms and then some independent duchies and city-states and things like that. So the 730s. At that time, this is the era for Egypt. I think that's Middle Kingdom era. So you've got sort of Egypt down here, you've got Israel and Judah here, and then over here are some rising powers. Babylon down here, Assyria up here. And Assyria is starting to, flex its muscles and expand some. And that, of course, makes Egypt very unhappy and nervous, and Israel and Judah are in between the two. And so Assyria starts, some raids and things like that, and trying to get people on their side, developing treaties so that they can take out Egypt, which is sort of the world's superpower of the time. Nobody could touch Egypt. And Assyria is thinking, I think we'll see about that. And what happens is the king of Judah stays out of it. He's like Switzerland. I don't want to have anything to do with any of this stuff. Up in Israel, not so much so. There's a king who makes a treaty with Assyria. There are other factions in his court which are anti-Assyria. They effect a coup, they kill the king, they get their guy in. He starts to put together a collection of anti-Assyria forces and countries and that in the area. And then there's another coup and they take that guy out and they put someone else in. And Assyria finally gets fed up with this and they attack Samaria and the Galilee, Naphtali and Samaria. That's what all is going on. And when the Assyrians attacked and moved in, it was not nice. It was a total bloodletting. It was awful. And so Isaiah, that's the context into which Isaiah has this beautiful vision of arise, shine. Your light has come. The people that sat in great darkness, deep darkness, have seen a great light. On those who sat in that deep darkness, light has shone. And so he had no reason for hope. There was absolutely zero reason for hope. Isaiah would have seen all of this bloodshed and chaos, and like you didn't know day to day whether this was the day that there was going to be some other foreign army marching down your streets. And the slaughter was horrible. And so into that hopeless, violent, awful mess, Isaiah has this beautiful vision. And Matthew then picks that vision up and is saying to us that this Jesus is that light. That in the time of your deepest darkness, that at those times when the world seems hopeless, like you have zero cause for hope, the whole thing seems to be, I think I can use this phrase safely. If it upsets you, please tell me after, and you know those times when it seems like the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket, as they say? At times like that. That was Isaiah's world. And Matthew says to us, this Jesus is that light. He is our hope. And where Matthew puts that in this timeline of Jesus, so just to freshen your memory, in Matthew's telling of Jesus' story, what's happened is there's been the birth narrative of Jesus, and then there's some missing years and some things around childhood, these missing years, and then Jesus reappears. There's the baptism of John. He is directly then driven out into the desert for 40 days, 40 nights. He comes back, learns that John has been arrested, and he leaves Nazareth and goes over to Galilee. Galilee, after that Assyrian business I mentioned, it has by this point been Gentile, mixed race area for centuries. This, by the way, is also the era that is the roots of the animosity and outright hatred between the people of Judah and Israel and Samaria. So do you remember the story of the Good Samaritan and those times about Samaria? That's when it all started, was because of all of that. And so Matthew sets this right at the beginning of Jesus' public ministry, so that he is saying to us with where he has put this and referring back to the mess with Zebulun and Naphtali, this Jesus is that light. This Jesus is where we find hope. This Jesus is the one who brings us peace in the midst of our chaos, our violence, how we mistreat one another. This Jesus is that light. And then Paul, in today's epistle, picks up that same theme. And maybe some of us can on occasion find it a little bit reassuring. From time to time you'll hear people who are critical of the church and that and say, all those churches, like they keep fighting with each other and all that stuff. Maybe it's a little bit reassuring to know that goes right back into St. Paul's day, And anytime you get a human collection of people, every community board I have sat on, of every organization I have been involved with, there's always going to be little factions and all that sort of thing. But think again about what Paul is addressing in that epistle. He says, it has been reported to me by Chloe's people, there are quarrels among you. What I mean is that each of you says, I belong to Paul, or I belong to Apollos, or I belong to Cephas, or I belong to Christ. So you can hear what they're doing in that is each of those little factions think that they have, some sort of like inside track on the best way, that they got some from Cephas, and well, if you only learn from Apollo, like you're kind of deficient actually, and like it's all this, and then other people, you can almost hear the smug self-righteousness about, well, I belong to Christ, not Apollo or Cephas, like it's all these little things. And what Paul is trying to call them to is the primacy of our discipleship and following Jesus over and above everything else. So that if we say Jesus is Lord of our life, the Son of God, then doesn't that trump everything else? You see, what I have learned in church circles over the years, and I've told you about the worst, well, maybe the worst or best, depending on how you look at it, the example of huge fight, 50-50, division of the congregation. This was back up North Huron County, and it was over painting the inside sills, about whether it was pink or white tinged with burgundy, and when they showed, these colors, like they all looked the same. And they were fighting. Like some of the things Christians can fight about are just the silliest things. And over and above all of that is the cross of Christ. And Paul says this message is foolishness to those who don't understand, to those people upon whom that light seems to have not shone, who have not seen that great light. Why is it foolishness? It is foolishness because the heart of our Christian discipleship, what we say about how you most find fulfillment in life, is through things like mercy and forgiveness and sacrificial selflessness in service to other people. What our world tells you is take care of yourself only, and he with the most toys at the ends wins. Always a he, never a she. That's what our world tells you. Our world says you look out for your own best good, and the way you will most be happy is the most that you can grow your bank account balance, or maybe your stock portfolio, or all of these things. It's all stuff out here. And our message is that's not how you find fulfillment and happiness in life. That's not how you find peace, peacefulness as a human. That how we find it is learning and growing in Christ, focusing on his cross, focusing on our discipleship, not getting caught up in all of the chaos of our world. I mean, more chaos than our neighbors to the south yesterday. And I look at all of even the political chaos, and I think to myself, if more of that could be focused on Jesus and his teaching and his ways, on both sides of these divides, I must say, both sides of these divides, then we would find so much more peaceableness. We would find an end to our violence. Because it seems, it's just been years and years and years of protest after protest after protest, where there's so much discontent in our world. And these texts are saying to us, light is possible. This is what John tells us in the opening verses of his gospel, right? When John says to us that the light has shone in the darkness, and that darkness can never overcome it, that Jesus is the light. It is that Jesus that we have relationship, which makes us beacons of light. That our light, ideally, shines out into the world, the people around us. And one of the ways that I think I see that happening is, we can take, even in all of the disputes and divisiveness and polarization in our world, that we can be a more, mediating center place, a peaceable energy, a non-anxious presence that we can bring into all of these disputes, because we say things differently. We see the silliness and the foolishness of all the ways that people divide the world up, which is really fighting about silly little stuff down here. As disciples of Jesus, our focus is on bigger stuff up here, like fulfillment, peacefulness, building people up so that others can reach their fullest potential as a human being. That's what discipleship is about. Not all this other stuff. All of this other stuff, it's just distractions. It's noise and distractions. That's what these readings are about this morning, as I see it. That we are the people, and we can look around our world and see all the people that sit in great darkness. We have a solution to that darkness. We have a solution to that chaos. From us, light shines, hopefully. Even maybe at those times, and you don't realize it. I think, especially we Anglicans, we do a very good job of putting ourselves down and not really, and that's good, by that's good. What I mean is, I'm not a fan of pomposity or arrogance or those sorts of things. We are humble people, I hope. But light shines from us. As a disciple of Jesus, that's what we focus on. He is Lord of our life. St. John, not only in his gospel, but over in his first letter, we're in the 4th chapter, when he says to us, God is love. Those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. And then he goes on about how, love is perfected by Jesus having been sent to us. And then these are these hard-hitting words of John. I like John's letters because, like James, they're so unequivocal. They're so clear. Those who say, I love God, but hate their brothers and sisters are liars. For those who do not love a brother or sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. The commandment we have from him is this: those who love God must love their brothers and sisters also. He doesn't leave us a lot of wiggle room in there, does he? He doesn't really mince his words. That has to be our priority as a community of disciples of Jesus. And when we master that, the light that shines from us can be almost blinding to pierce that darkness that surrounds us. Amen.